Everyone thought their love was unbreakable. Ji-eun believed that real love didn't need to be loud to be strong. She believed it lived quietly inside routines, inside shared silences, inside mornings that repeated themselves without effort. For 7 years Minho had been part of her everyday life. Not as someone who demanded attention, but as someone who existed beside her so naturally that she stopped imagining life without him. Their apartment wasn't big, but it felt complete. Every corner carried memories they didn't need to talk about. The couch where evenings disappeared, the kitchen counter where coffee was made every morning without discussion. The window that faced the city, reminding her that while the world outside changed, theirs remained steady. Mornings followed a rhythm that never changed. Ji-eun usually woke first, not because she had to but because she loved the quiet before the day began. She watched sunlight stretch slowly across the walls. Listened to the soft sounds of the city waking up. Enjoyed knowing Minho was still asleep nearby. Soon she would hear movement. Footsteps. Water running. The familiar clink of a cup. Minho moved through the apartment like someone who belonged there. Like someone who had no reason to leave. And Ji-eun watched him without realizing she was memorizing a version of him she believed would last forever. They didn't talk much in the mornings. They didn't need to. 7 years had taught them how to exist together without filling every silence. Sometimes he brushed past her and rested a hand briefly on her shoulder. Sometimes he kissed the top of her head without stopping what he was doing. Small gestures. Effortless gestures. The kind that made love feel settled. This was the kind of love Ji-eun trusted. Not passion that burned fast, but warmth that stayed. Friends admired them. They said things like, "You're lucky. 7 years is rare. You two are solid." Ji-eun believed it. In a world where people left easily, 7 years felt like proof. Proof that patience mattered. Proof that love didn't need drama to be real. When she imagined the future, she didn't see surprises. She saw continuity. The same mornings in a slightly bigger place. Marriage as a natural step. A shared life unfolding quietly. Her future with Minho felt already written. And that certainty made her feel safe. She trusted him because he had never given her a reason not to. She trusted him because 7 years felt too long for deception. She trusted him because love that survived boredom felt stronger than love built on excitement. So she didn't watch closely. Didn't question small changes. Didn't pay attention to details. Because when you trust someone completely, you stop looking for cracks. That morning felt exactly like every other morning before it. Calm. Predictable. Certain. And that was what made it dangerous. The change was small but impossible to ignore. Ji-eun had noticed it for the first time that week. A pause in his voice. A hesitation in his smile. The kind of small detail you convince yourself doesn't matter until it begins to matter too much. Minho, who had always been open and present, now smiled at his phone in a way that felt private. Not the warm, casual smile he saved for her, but a smile that belonged somewhere she wasn't invited. He began taking calls outside the room. Lowering his voice. Turning away in a way that made her feel distant. Even the way he laughed sounded slightly off, like he was sharing a secret she wasn't part of. At first Ji-eun tried to ignore it. She told herself relationships had rhythms. That this was normal. A phase. Nothing to worry about. But the unease didn't go away. It hovered. Settling quietly in her chest. She found herself noticing every small movement. The tilt of his head. The way he lingered on messages. The subtle distraction when they were together. Even the way he touched her began to feel automatic. The hand on her shoulder. The kiss on her forehead. Gestures repeated so often they felt like routines rather than affection. Ji-eun didn't want to question him. Because asking questions meant acknowledging doubt. And acknowledging doubt felt dangerous. She reminded herself of what 7 years had taught her. That love could survive boredom. That passion fades. That trust is the invisible glue keeping two people together. Yet, something had shifted. Something that she couldn't ignore even if she tried. A tiny shift that made her heart tighten without reason. And made her eyes search his face for answers he hadn't given. She imagined confronting him and immediately dismissed it. Because trust was stronger than fear. Because love required faith. Because doubting him could create cracks where there were none. So she stayed quiet. Pretended everything was normal. Even smiled when he glanced her way. Even laughed at the jokes he made, though a part of her felt hollow. And all the while, she felt the first faint tremor of uncertainty. Like the calm surface of water rippling from a pebble thrown far away. It was subtle. But it was there. And she couldn't unsee it. That evening, as she watched him leave for a late meeting, she whispered to herself. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. But deep down, she knew. Some shifts, once felt, cannot be ignored. And the first crack in their quiet life had begun. She didn't want proof. She just wanted peace. Doubt didn't arrive loudly. It didn't accuse. It didn't demand answers. It arrived quietly. In moments Ji-eun used to feel safe. She felt it most at night. When the apartment was quiet and the world outside had gone dark. When Min-ho lay beside her scrolling through his phone. His face lit by a glow that felt strangely distant. She told herself not to look. Not to count how often he smiled at the screen. Not to notice how quickly he locked it when she shifted beside him. But doubt has a way of pulling attention toward itself, no matter how hard you resist. Ji-eun lay still. Listening to his breathing. Measuring the distance between their bodies. It felt small. Yet somehow wider than it had ever been. She remembered how they used to talk before sleeping. About nothing. About everything. Plans that didn't need to be realistic because they were shared. Now silence stretched longer. And when he spoke it felt surface level. Careful. Like he was editing himself. During the day she replayed moments in her mind. Conversations that ended too quickly. Text messages he answered late. The way his eyes sometimes drifted away while she spoke. Nothing was obvious. Nothing was undeniable. And that was what made it cruel. Because doubt without proof feels like betrayal of trust. And Ji-eun didn't want to be the kind of woman who suspected without reason. She asked herself the same question repeatedly. Am I imagining this? She reminded herself that long relationships change. That comfort replaces intensity. That excitement fades. But the more she tried to rationalize the feeling, the heavier it became. One evening she caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Tired eyes. A face searching for reassurance. She wondered when she had started looking at herself this way. Like someone waiting for something to break. Min-ho noticed her quietness. Asked if she was okay. His voice gentle. Convincing. She smiled and said she was fine. Because saying anything else felt like opening a door she wasn't ready to walk through. Trust demanded silence. Or at least that's what she believed. So she swallowed the questions. The unease. The quiet fear that love might not always fade gently. Sometimes it slips away without warning. That night she lay awake longer than usual, staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. She told herself that doubt was a test, that love meant choosing belief even when certainty wavered. But deep inside, a thought formed that scared her more than any suspicion. What if she was already losing him? And didn't know when it started? He didn't lie. He just stopped telling the truth. Ji-eun realized something was wrong, not because Minho changed completely, but because he changed selectively. There were moments when he was still gentle, still familiar, still the man she had loved for 7 years. And then there were moments when he wasn't. The shift wasn't dramatic. It didn't come with arguments or distance she could point to. It came in omissions. In answers that felt incomplete. In stories that ended too neatly. He started coming home later. Not excessively late. Just late enough to feel intentional. When she asked how his day had been, he answered quickly. Too quickly. Like someone trying to move past a subject rather than share it. She noticed how his explanations lacked detail. No names. No complaints. No emotions. Minho used to talk about people. About frustrations. About moments that made him laugh or think. Now his days sounded empty. Flat. Unlived. And Ji-eun felt something tighten inside her. She didn't accuse him. Didn't press. Because the absence of truth felt more powerful than a lie. One night she asked casually. Who were you with after work? He paused. Just for a second. But it was enough. Then he smiled and said. Just some colleagues. The words were harmless. But the pause before them stayed with her. Ji-eun nodded. Pretended that was enough. But something inside her shifted permanently. She realized then that lies didn't always arrive dressed as falsehoods. Sometimes they arrived as gaps. As missing pieces you were never meant to notice. She replayed the moment again and again. The pause. The smile. The tone. And she hated herself for doing it. Because love wasn't supposed to feel like investigation. Trust wasn't meant to feel like restraint. Yet she couldn't ignore the sensation that she was being edited out of his life. Slowly. Carefully. Without confrontation. That night she stood in the kitchen alone long after he had gone to bed. The apartment felt the same. But something invisible had shifted. She looked around at the life they had built. The shared space. The years that had settled into the walls. And for the first time she wondered. What if this life no longer belonged to both of them? Minho slept peacefully, unaware or unwilling. She couldn't tell which frightened her more. Ji-eun returned to bed quietly. Lay beside him. Staring into the dark. She understood then that the most dangerous lies were not spoken. They were lived. And once you feel them, you can never unfeel them. She heard the name by accident. And nothing felt accidental anymore. It happened on an ordinary evening. The kind of evening Ji-eun would have once described as peaceful. Minho was in the shower. Water running. Steam filling the bathroom. His phone buzzed on the table. Once. Then again. Ji-eun didn't move at first. She had never checked his phone. Never felt the need to. Trust had always been enough. But the screen lit up again. And this time she saw it. A name she didn't recognize. She told herself to look away. Told herself curiosity was a mistake. That love demanded restraint, yet her eyes lingered. Just long enough. The message preview was short. Too short. Did you get home safely? Ji-eun's chest tightened. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't explicit. But it wasn't neutral either. She stepped back as if she'd been caught doing something wrong. Her heart pounding. Her thoughts racing. The name stayed with her, echoing louder than the running water. When Minho came out, towel around his waist, hair damp, face relaxed, she forced a smile. Asked about his day. Her voice steady in a way that surprised her. He answered casually, unaware that something had shifted forever. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Minho's phone buzzed again. This time he reached for it quickly. Too quickly. He turned away. Lowered the brightness. Typed a response. Ji-eun watched in silence. Her mind replaying the name. The message. The way his body had reacted instinctively. She didn't confront him. Didn't ask. Because now the doubt had a shape. A name. A presence. And somehow that felt worse than uncertainty. She stared at the ceiling. Every shared memory rearranging itself. Every moment now open to reinterpretation. She wondered how long the name had existed. How many conversations had happened without her knowing. How many smiles she had mistaken for exhaustion. Beside her, Minho slept easily. And Ji-eun realized something that made her chest ache. Love doesn't always end with a confession. Sometimes it ends with information you were never meant to have. That night she didn't cry. Didn't move. Didn't speak. She simply lay there. Listening to his breathing, holding the name in her mind like a quiet fracture. And for the first time in 7 years, she understood. Trust once cracked never returns to its original shape.